Management by objectives. This is something that is taught in schools, and in business circles, people talk about this a lot, and they repeat it. And would it surprise you to learn that most people who talk about this get it wrong? They don't actually know what it is, and they certainly don't know how to implement it. Let's dive in. Okay, probably a great place to start is what people think management by objectives is, okay? Now, imagine you're a boss and you have a group of workers and you announce to the workers, this is your goal. You have to do this by this date or we're going to have a problem. A lot of people think that's what management by objectives is. You set an arbitrary objective, you give those instructions to your workforce and they do it for you. Now, I don't know what that is, but that isn't management by objectives. That's a boss assigning an arbitrary goal. That's been happening since antiquity. It's been working with various degrees of efficacy since antiquity. It certainly isn't a modern management strategy, okay? And it's not management by objectives. Let's talk about what it actually is. Management by objectives is what I've just described, but with one extra component, okay? The goal, the objective that the manager sets, it's not something arbitrary that they dream up, okay? They approve it, but then the workers independently and mutually agree that it's a reasonable goal and they sign off on it too. That's the missing piece. That's what makes it management by objectives. A lot of people skip that step. Either through ignorance, they don't realize they have to do this, or they decide, you know what, that's too much trouble. Who has the time to do that kind of thing? So we're going to skip that step. We're not going to get buy-in from the workers that this is a goal that we should set. Okay? That usually results in disaster. Okay? If you can get this mutually agreed goal where the manager says this goal is reasonable, I approve it. And the workers say, no, this goal is reasonable, I approve it too. Amazing things happen. It becomes a win-win-win situation. The goal is achieved. The manager gets to use their workforce to their full potential. The workers themselves are motivated. They believe that they're doing something that they can do. They feel good about themselves. They get rewarded, and everybody's happy. It's a beautiful thing. Now, obviously, let's talk about the catch, okay? The fact that you have to go to your workers and get some kind of mutually agreed upon goal is going to be a roadblock for certain managers. Let's face it. Number one, not only does this take up time and effort, number two, you might not have a really great relationship with your workforce. And let's face it, a lot of people don't. And that's going to be a real issue for you. So that's a catch for a lot of people, okay? But if you can do this step, it can lead to some really amazing things. Let me give you an example. Okay, let's say you're in the business of building houses, for want of an example. And every week, your business averages, say, 20 houses, okay? Well, this week, the boss comes to the workers and says, you know what? Our objective for this week is 40 houses. I expect 40 houses to be built by the end of the week. Make it happen, or we're going to have a problem. Now, what would you do if you were a worker and your boss did that to you? Well, the first thing you'd probably do is think, that's just not achievable. Okay? I mean, even if we worked flat out and gave it our all, we could maybe do 30, but we certainly can't do 40. We'll never be able to do 40 houses in a week in a million years. So, having come to this conclusion that it's an unachievable goal, would you break your back trying to achieve an unachievable goal? Of course not. You would disengage. You'd say, you know what? I'm going to do my regular amount of work. Whatever I get done, because we're not going to make 40. So maybe we'll make 21 or something like that, 22. We're not going to get to 40. It's a lose, lose, lose type situation. The manager sets a goal that is not achieved. The workers are not motivated to work towards it. And the boss looks like an idiot because they assigned a goal that was missed by a very wide margin, thus kind of being embarrassing for the manager and showing that they really don't have a realistic of appraisal of what their team can do. This is how this stuff usually works out. And that's why it's a catch. That's why having a great relationship with your workers and really being able to work with them really pays off. Now, there's a couple of caveats here. You can't just assign any goal. You might have heard of SMART goals, okay? When it comes to assigning an objective, it has to meet this criteria, okay? Your objective has to be specific. That means you can't say our goal is to do better or something like that. It has to be very specific. It has to be measurable. There has to be numbers in it so you can measure your performance against the goal. It has to be achievable. This is the catch and why you need employee buy-in that the goal can happen. It has to be relevant. If I was in the business that was building houses, I can't assign my workers the task of saying, the goal of saying, okay, you need to pick more flowers and put them on the secretary's desk. That has nothing to do with the mission of the organization, right? It has to be relevant. It has to tie in with how the business makes their money, okay? And it has to be time-based. That means a deadline. You got to put a deadline on things or it's not really a goal. If you give yourself an infinite amount of time to do things, you could sit on your hands for 10 years and not do anything and say, well, you know, things are still going smoothly, right? So it has to conform to these 5 constraints. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, this is obviously going to involve some kind of reward, okay? At the lower level, the supervisor worker level, the rewards are going to be largely intangible. They're going to be just, you know, sort of little things here and there, not very formal. They're certainly not going to be written into contracts and things like that. It's going to be more sort of informal type things, okay? Now, the question is, do you have to have rewards at all? Yes, you do. You can't just have a fixed amount of compensation for whatever performance happens. There has to be some incentive, okay? And that's why when we scale this up, we scale up management by objectives to higher levels of an organization. If we take it up to the C level, for example, okay, the big change that's going to happen there is that the incentive structure is going to be much more complex and much more formalized. This is where it ties in directly with things like executive compensation, okay, which borrows from the world of finance, it borrows from the world of organizational theory, it borrows from the world of HR, and it's all written out in a very, very formal kind of way, okay? Management by objectives can be very, very, very effective, but it has to have the incentive structure tailored to what level at which you're applying it. So that's what I'll say about that. Hopefully this makes sense. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are all awesome. And tune in for more management videos and career type videos on my channel. Thank you very much. Take care.